environment, what it's going to look like 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, especially those of us that are, trying to build businesses and families and legacy, and you're trying to look for where can I move to where I know I can be here for decades, my family, my grandchildren, where can I go? Those areas are changing, and the environment and what's available and the job markets, like all of that will change. So, my background is in natural catastrophes, and trying to evaluate different companies and buildings and business processes, utilities as well, to figure out what can we do to protect them from hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, hail, etc. But the thing is I've seen what happens if we don't, and I understand that there's a certain population and community that's exposed more than others are. Those with less are exposed more than those that have the resources to relocate to higher ground, to build up on, people have resources, they can fix these things, and we can all get together and help each other and fix things together. So for us, when it comes to Trella Technologies and indoor growing, this is just one, thing that we think, well, all right, if we're going to grow indoors, we see that we have to, let's make sure that we're doing it in a way that includes the use of more plants. So let's diversify the types of plants we can grow inside. And let's make sure that we're doing it in a way that's sustainable, that doesn't use a lot of energy. And not so much, we want to reduce energy for a fossil fuel. We don't want to depend on it, but we're also thinking about remote growing. We may have to grow in areas where we can't get a lot of power out there. And we don't want to just have to rely on growing leafy greens and short plants. We want to be able to grow, an abundance of things. So we're thinking about those situations as well.
And this is, it's really quite different for people, whether they're in a city versus rural living right now, because we're also isolated and stuck inside our homes. There's a lot of people in the cities right now that can't access fresh food. I've got some friends that live sort of in the outskirts, in the suburbs of Boston, and they're having to order their groceries and wait, 2 weeks until they can get it delivered. And even when they get it delivered, oftentimes there's a shortage of fresh fruits and vegetables and like medicinal plants and herbs and things like that, because folks are snatching them up. And I went the other day to my local gardening store, which, by the way, is like a little haven right now, because nobody even remembers that gardening stores are open and you can go walk around all these trees, and it's like a nice little private park just for you. Memo to you, if you want to get out, go to your local nursery. But they were like selling out of tomato plants and basil and zucchini, and I don't know, people are just buying up absolutely everything. And I was thinking about the people in cities, probably near me in the rural parts of Massachusetts. Yeah, there's more plants being brought up. We've all got our own land. But for the folks in cities who are having kind of access to food problems, they are also having access to space to grow problems. Like they need, maybe they have a balcony or a closet or something, but.
Yeah. And that is true. I do people in Manhattan that are, in apartments that are only, 200 square feet or less. What do you do? And I think that's where I'd like the idea of community farms and using rooftops and just trying to come up with more creative ways that we can find a place to grow food. And I do know of some projects where there are, some developers that are putting that in to the layout of the property, space for community farms, et cetera. But we need a lot more. We need a lot more of that.
I wonder how much of this is going to adapt so that we can start to provide more greens for people in the cities.
There's a lot of different spaces I feel like we can do things like that. And, where my background goes, okay, so if you're going to put things on roofs, different areas you wouldn't want to do that. Like you might not want to do that in a place with lots of hail, or you might not want to do that on a place along the coast, like in Miami. But if you're further inland where you're not going to have a lot of different issues, you could build an open air garden on the rooftop. Or if you feel like you are in one of those areas where you need more protection, you could build a greenhouse structure around it that has the right protection to make sure that nothing will get damaged. But things can be done. And I think, luckily, the cannabis industry, we're considered essential, but I do feel like this pandemic is really affecting the market, despite what some articles might say. we're essential, but we're dealing with it too. And I'm hoping that some people that are developing technology for cannabis are looking to pivot into food too, because we spent a lot of money and energy trying to find all these new tech gadgets to grow cannabis efficiently, but actually maybe we need to switch this stuff and start trying to figure out how to grow food. So we're in that, we're kind of in that mindset ourselves right now.
It's interesting that you say that it's an essential business. That made me think, like, this has gone from an underground, illegal, illicit, something to do with a lack of morality, sort of black market business, and now it is considered essential for health. Just an amazing turnaround for the weed industry, really. Like, this is a brand new legal industry, especially Massachusetts. It's really, under 5 years old. And maybe in some other states they're a little more established and some of these companies might survive the pandemic. But unless Massachusetts passes something that's like the Paycheck Protection Program for the companies that aren't covered by the federal PPP, I can see the cannabis businesses in Massachusetts really suffering from the shutdowns right now. Yeah.
And I learned of something yesterday, and I want to do some more research. So I'll preface what I'm saying next with I need to do more research. We at Trella, we use regulation crowdfunding to raise investment capital. So it's a way for us to turn our supporters into investors, and it's available to all types of companies. But cannabis companies have to kind of figure out, I think, a different way to participate. So they may do it with a real estate investment trust, or they may do it as a distribution company, but it really is kind of tied to, cannabis cultivation. And they also allow CBD companies to do it. And I found out just recently that they've allowed for companies that have been established for 6 months or more to get into this regulation crowdfunding with less paperwork, less financial paperwork up front, which allows people to start raising money within weeks versus within months. So I want to do some more research because I think this might be a potential resource for some people who, either are doing CBD only. They might be able to switch to regulation crowdfunding very quickly within the next couple of weeks to start bringing in some investment capital if they're hurting. So I'm going to do some more research on that, and I'll be posting on it too on my socials and things like that. So if people want to connect and follow along, stay tuned, and I'm trying to get more information. I may or may not, I'm not sure, do like a quick Q&A live or something just to answer some questions about regulation crowdfunding, because I think it may be really helpful for people, especially right
now. Do you have any last growing tips for me as I continue to try and turn these poor little weed plants into something that might bud?
Well, so you said you just went from veg to flower?
Yeah, just a few days ago.
Indoor, from veg to flower.
Indoor.
Yeah, I would say humidity would be my next thing on my list of just let's be very aware of the humidity and making sure that we don't get any mold and stuff, because you're getting into that. It's going to start flowering and getting tighter in there. So air circulation will be really key. And yeah, I think just have fun. They do all the work, really.
And now for your New England cannabis news. We could soon see a semi-solution to the closure of recreational pot shops. Last week, the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission announced that as of May 28th, third-party home delivery businesses can apply for a license. They won't be selling their own weed, they'll be licensed to take a purchase from a rec shop and drop it off to an adult at home. There will also be licenses available for micro-businesses hoping to deliver their own products, like our previous guest, Brit Smith of Freshly Baked. The licensing process for both options will only be open to equity applicants for the first 2 years. Vermont's Speaker of the House said this week that pending legislation to start legal marijuana sales will be picked back up after the coronavirus response has slowed down. The bill would have set up the sale and taxation of recreational pot, but it won't be discussed anytime soon. Speaker Mitzi Johnson said the Vermont legislature will reconsider the bill before the end of the year. And our good friends at Cannabis Community Care and Research Network, better known as C3RN, have launched a study on the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on medical marijuana patients, adult consumers, and cannabis businesses. Hopefully, we'll be able to check in soon with Dr. Marion McNabb from C3RN about what that study is telling us, and hopefully how the results could impact future local cannabis policy. Wherever you're listening, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Follow us on social media at Different Leaf. I'm on social media at Brit the British. And thanks to our producer Andrea Maraskin, and thanks to Homebody for the music.